Good evening, everybody. The time being 6:32, I declare the meeting open. Could you please stand for the opening prayer?
Councillors, we pray that tonight that we will make decisions in accordance with the interests of the community, and we pray that we will be respectful and acknowledge each other's differences. But we also pray that all actions undertaken in this chamber, now and well into the future, will be in accordance with the best will and wishes of the community.
Everyone, please be seated. So now we go to mayoral minutes, and there are none tonight. Public forum, I have no requests this evening for public forum. So then we go to items by exception. 22.1, the rescission 4. We'll have to deal with that. And we'll go straight to 22.48, the draft budget. Moved Councillor Hammond.
So, Mayor, my motion aims to amend proposed fees and charges for the Granville Centre Synthetic Court to allow free use for local youth after school. We know that the fastest growing age groups are children between the ages of 12 and 17, and that will see a further 55% increase by 2036. The futsal field at Granville Centre was always about kids hanging out after school, kicking the ball around, keeping them off the streets. I want to put something into perspective here. The adjoining space, which is a basketball court, that's free. We are building fitness stations where we can. They're free. Kids' playgrounds are free, netball courts are free, skate parks are free, sports grounds are free, dog off-leash parks are free. They're all free and they're all accessible.
This amended recommendation is a fiscally sensible and community-focused resolution that ensures that this wonderful resource can realise its full potential.
For a long time, those of you know me as a big advocate for a reasonable amount of grants program. Our community grants program should always reflect community needs. And we all know for the last 2 years, only $50,000 worth of community grants program hasn't gone far at all.
So it's about the budget, and first of all, increasing the community grant from 50K to 500K is a welcoming change. For 50,000 isn't good enough to support community organisations who are making significant contribution in the council. Our multicultural, when it is very competitive grant, is very hard for them.
So we'll go to Councillor Christou.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In principle, I'm supportive of the motion. However, I would like to propose an amendment. But one thing that bothers me, this is coming at a price later on. This is coming at a price where my colleagues opposite me want to raise the rates. And the only way we're going to be able to fund this is through raising the rates. However, I'm not happy with that. I will support the motion with an amendment that we and council does not incur a special variation on its residents. Especially since we are a low socio-economic area, we can't give with one hand, yet take away with the other hand.
Councillor Christou, I'm thinking through this amendment and appreciating that what you've put up as an amendment is the opposite of the resolution that was passed at the last council meeting. You filed a rescission motion, but that has not yet been determined. So the council resolution at the moment is that council does proceed with the special rate variation, and therefore I'm reluctant to accept this as an amendment.
Take 2 hours of free time and extra grants with one hand, but we're going to increase the rates with the other hand. I will not put our residents through that.
Councillor Christou, what you're putting forward in the amendment is actually your rescission motion. I'll rule that it is foreshadowing your rescission motion, and therefore, at this point of the debate, it can't be moved as an amendment.
The thing to note, I guess, is that the criteria and the eligibility around who can access the club grants scheme tends to be a little bit tighter than what it is for the council community grants, so it can exclude at times the smaller community groups that are looking for seed funding or are startups or just trying to get themselves off the ground. And you typically tend to find that the more established groups do go with the club grants, and we have tended to fund where there's seed funding required, and those real starting from scratch capacity building exercises that then typically move on to other sources of funding. So the model is designed to work so that organisations aren't duplicating where they access grants depending on their maturity level. I hope that explains a little bit how the differences between the two schemes.
The next person I have here is Councillor Huang.
Can the relevant officer provide me with the figure for the 2021 advertisement/marketing budget?
And this is a part of the motion?
It's a question. It's a question about the budget, which is what we're doing right now.
You're talking about a past budget and...
Councillor Sarkis.
Yeah, so the entire media budget, excluding the staffing costs, has been decreased by 150,000 in the draft 22-23 budget.
To the relevant officer, because I'm just looking at the motion that's been proposed by Councillor Hamed. In number 2, she's proposing for 2 hours of free futsals on Friday between 3 to 5, right? 2 hours per week, and she's proposing of Monday to Friday. Okay, sorry. Because I'm just confused, because previously Councillor Kustu was saying that, you know, we are giving the resident kids free futsals, therefore we have to increase taxes or something. But by the looks of it, it looks like it's just perfectly budgeted.
Thank you, Councillor Christou. If you wish to make a point of clarification through the chair. Yeah.
No, I'm happy letting Councillor Huang embarrass himself further.
Councillor Christou, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I've already spoken, Councillor Lake. Of course I support it. I just don't want it going through with increase to rates, but we'll address that on the next item.
I will now put the motion. All those in favour of the Hamed-Coleman motion, please raise your hands. We've got Councillor Faruqi, Councillor Elmore, Councillor Sain, Councillor Hamed, Councillor Coleman, Councillor Huang, Councillor Lake, Councillor Christou, Councillor Hughes, Councillor Zadak, Councillor Rami, Councillor Cummings, Councillor Saha. All those against? Councillor Sarkis. I declare the motion carried. And I move on to 2250, the Community Engagement Strategy.
I think in this document, in one of the pages, it says about 32,000 people find it hard in Cumberland Council to speak English. So, and we know the percentage of people who speak English as second language.
And that matter is carried. I turn now to the resolution, the rescission motion number 4, notice of rescission, Councillor Christou.
We had this debate drawn out 2 weeks ago, and I cannot believe that my colleagues opposite me have voted for a rate increase on our residents. I was very proud that in the last term of council we did not put up a special variation for our residents, even though they're amongst the poorest demographics, were the worst hit council through COVID, lockdowns, curfews, restrictions. Our bottom line took a massive hit, yet through good financial management, we managed to not put in and not raise the rates for our residents.
Well, it's all been said before in the protracted and vitriolic debate in the last council meeting. I think it's important to go over the facts again so everyone can understand what this is really about. Each year, the New South Wales Government sets the rate peg to take account of rising costs incurred by New South Wales councils. Over the past decade, the rate peg has averaged out at around 2.5%, and New South Wales councils have used this forecast when planning their long-term income and expenditure to ensure balanced budgets. But for some unknown reason, the government decided that this year's announced rate peg would only be 1.2%. This is despite a wage increase for council staff of 2% and an inflation rate of 3.1%, making it clear that such a determination was not based on any actual facts on the cost of local council operations. Following an outcry from councils across New South Wales, the government realised the error of its ways and issued a statement recognising, and I quote, that this may result in some councils not having sufficient funds to pay for required infrastructure and services. But instead of just fixing it, the New South Wales Government has decided to push the burden back onto councils by requiring them to apply for a special rate variation to bring the rate peg back up to the forecast 2.5%. And so this is where we are, having to carry a motion rather than the New South Wales Government, after admitting its error, doing its job properly and providing the means for New South Wales councils to meet our obligations to our residents. While I haven't made an exhaustive study, a quick ring around shows that Parramatta, Liverpool, Ryde and Inner West councils will apply, while Fairfield and Blacktown are currently considering it. And while all this while we talk about projections of a fragile surplus built on extreme cutbacks to services and the abandonment of any capital works that didn't include anything that wasn't joint New South Wales government funded projects in the Granville ward, this fragile surplus projection will most likely be eaten up with the current shock caused by the floods, let alone saving us from another rainy day. We are left with no option than to play the state government's game, bite the bullet and get on with the important business of supporting our residents as they go about recovering from these difficult times. It's the only fiscally and socially responsible action available. Thank you.
So could someone please tell me what the rate increase for business rates for the Holroyd section, the Auburn section and the Parramatta section, noting that in the previous document we were looking at an average rate increase of $99 in business rates?
Through you, Mayor, I'll pass it on to Mr. Sheen.
Through you, Mayor. So our business is split between general and industrial. So in terms of business general, the increase in rates would be $78 for Auburn, former Auburn. The increase for former Holroyd for business general would be $61 average. And former Parramatta would be $63 average for business general. In terms of business industrial, the additional rate would be an average of $114 a year.
For Auburn?
For Auburn, sorry, yep. For former Holroyd, it'll be $146 on average per year, and for former Parramatta, $82 per year additional.
Our ratepayers have to carry the can, and the most of the burden is being carried by the Holroyd ratepayers.
It hurts when we see people paying more and more. So some of our councillor colleagues from the other side has made it a big issue in social media and media that Labor team is supporting this rate increase because they don't care about people, which is a scare campaign. It is a very easy way to score political points by playing cheap political games because they knew about this 2.5% rate increase. It was already in the long-term financial plan. The reason we are supporting it, because this rate increase, we want our council to have sufficient fund to pay for required infrastructure and services.
Just need clarification as to whether we are currently budgeting in 2023 a budget surplus, what that surplus is, and whether we're also budgeting for a budget surplus in the short to medium term.
Through you, Mayor, yeah, we're budgeting for a $3.5 million budget surplus for the 22-23 financial year. Through you, Mayor, yes, we are in surplus for those 3 years. I can get the figures off the long-term financial plan if you like.
Firstly, I'd like to thank my fellow councillors who've actually moved this rescission to provide the Labor Party members and councillors the opportunity to reconsider their position regarding the increase of this increase of the rates on our local residents. As council staff have just confirmed, without excluding this particular rate increase of $1.35 million, we are currently projecting a $3.5 million surplus in 2023 and also surplus in the foreseeable future. So what one particular councillor stated previously, that we've got insufficient funds at the present time and that we must actually go for this particular increase because we can't afford to pay for our expenditure. Well, no, that's actually incorrect because our budgets are being put together to produce a surplus. The Labor Party and Labor councillors are making a specific choice to increase the rates on our residents at a time where we don't need to. I would hope that my fellow Labor councillors would reconsider, because they're the only ones who have actually voted for this increase, and push against this and hopefully change their decision and assist the people in our local area who are hurting from the costs associated with living.
What we have, councillors, is effectively the Labor Party endorsing bad management. But our grants have gone up from 50,000 to roughly 500,000 or 450,000. That's a massive increase. But let it be known, the ratepayers are paying for this. The Labor Party's performance, those opposite me, is we can increase the rates because that's okay. We've got racism not welcome signs. That's our legacy in the area. We can increase the rates because we've initiated an extra prayer break for a 2-hour council meeting for councillors. Oh, that's just great. Whether we have sat here and listened that we have a $3.5 million surplus, and yet during this $3.5 million surplus and then some councillors across the other side, and I understand they're newbies and maybe they don't get it, but they need to get it fast, want to claim that we're in financial ruin?
There will be a show of hands. All those in favour of the Christou, Hughes, Sarkis and Rami rescission motion, please raise their hands. Councillor Christou, Councillor Hughes, Councillor Zeta, Councillor Rami, Councillor Cummings and Councillor Sarkis. All those against the rescission, please raise their hand. Faruqi, Councillor Elmore, Councillor Hussain, Councillor Hamid, Councillor Coleman, Councillor Wan, Councillor Lake and Councillor Saha. Excuse me, I'm trying. Excuse me, Councillor Rami, please do not interject while I'm trying to deal with a count of a motion. The rescission motion is lost. I now turn to closed council matters. Thank you. We're now back into open sessions, time being 8:45 p.m. I declare the meeting closed.